What is prophecy? 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and verse 3. But he who prophesies speaks edification and exhortation and comfort to men. Prophecy is not about predicting the future. It is first edification and exhortation and comfort to the believers. The New Testament refers to prophecy as one of the spiritual gifts given by the indwelling Holy Spirit. Romans chapter 12 and verse 6. From this, many Christians believe that the gift of prophecy is the supernatural ability to receive and convey a message from God. The purpose of the message may be to edify, exhort and comfort the members of the church. A prophet, a teacher, one who receives the inspiration of spirit and understanding of spiritual law and imparts it to others. The source of all true prophecy is Yahweh Elohim. He transmits it by means of his Holy Spirit or occasionally by spirit-directed angelic messengers. See 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 20 and 21, Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 1 and 2. Since the fulfillment of God's great purpose is all bound up in Jesus, compare Colossians chapter 1 verses 19 and 20, then all prophecy, that is, all inspired messages from God proclaimed by his servants point toward his Son. Thus, as in Revelation chapter 19 and verse 10 states, the entire spirit, the whole inclination, intent and purpose of prophecy was to bear witness to Jesus, the one Yahweh would make the way and the truth and the life. John chapter 14 and verse 6. This would be true not only of prophecy that preceded Jesus' earthly ministry, but also of prophecy subsequent thereto. Acts chapter 2 verses 16 to 36. Prophecy is in truth and reality an emanation sent forth by the divine being through the medium of the active intellect, in the first instance to man's rational faculty and then to his imaginative faculty. The divine word which suddenly descends into the human situation, unexpected and unwilled by man, is free and fresh like lightning, and the man who has to make it heard is over and over again subdued by the word before he lets it be put into his mouth. A prophecy in the consciousness of a believer is a thought that is in contact with the Spirit, that receives revelation direct from the Holy Spirit. It knows and understands divine law and its working, therefore it warns and instructs the other thoughts. The prophets of old seemed to stand between God and the people. It was through them that the people received divine guidance. A prophet, according to Matthew chapter 21 and verse 4, is one who states the spiritual law. The prophets of Luke chapter 16 and verse 29 represent divine law. The prophet of John chapter 6 and verse 14 is the promise of God. Another word for a prophet is a watchman. The duty of the watchman in ancient times was to warn of approaching danger. In olden times, the watchman stood on the city walls where he could see and report what was going on in and about the city. What fills this office in the life of man, the Christ consciousness in a believer, points out to him the way of peace and safety. Man is free, however, to follow or disregard the warning at will. A watchman is a spiritually developed person who sees within and without, and with the word of command challenges anything negative. A watchman is a vigilant attitude, but more from a standpoint of looking on from the outside than laying hold of and becoming one with that which is perceived. Watcher, watchmen, viewers, lookers from afar. In the consciousness of the individual believer, What does a watchman represent in each individual believer? The true watchman is the inner consciousness of spirit, which sees all that is going on in the mind and heart of a believer. In order to be a capable watchman for the spiritual welfare of others, what is required of one who assumes that part? One who feels that he has been selected by God to guide and direct others in spiritual ways should first discipline his own thoughts and should become acquainted with both the inner and the outer realms of thought, the intellect, the propensities and the sentiments in the consciousness. In the scriptures, these realms are designated as the house of Israel, and when he who plans to be a watchman for the spiritual welfare of others has disciplined his own thoughts, he can go and successfully carry the message of life to others.